95% of people who set fitness resolutions for January, they quit within 12 months. The funny thing is that the 5% who actually stick to their resolutions, they had the exact same goals that the remaining 95% that failed. And yet they achieve very different outcomes. But if it's not about the goal, then what leads people to quit? And how can you learn from their mistakes in order to be successful yourself? As a fitness coach working one-on-one with my clients, I identified 3 major mental barriers that cause people to give up. So these are not the common excuses that you'll hear first, like I don't have the time or the money. It goes deeper than that, goes beyond. And these 3 fundamental reasons are: I don't feel I can do it, I'm not motivated enough, I don't feel confident enough. For you to be equipped and to build the dream lifestyle and the dream body that you want, I'll break down each of the 3 obstacles one by one, providing solutions and insights to help you overcome them when they do show up. The first problem that we're going to tackle is the problem of perceived capability. In other words, it's the I don't think I can do it. And if you're doubting your ability, the first thing that we need to take a look at are your past experiences, because these are the foundation of the way you perceive yourself and your abilities right now. So many people have tried a diet or even going to the gym once, and it didn't work, unfortunately for them. This was probably due to one of the problems listed above. And if you've tried and stopped, this message is particularly significant for you. Consider past experiences as data, and your memory is a storage system. But unlike a computer that retry tasks without hesitation, they link emotion to their memories. The intensity of these emotions, whether positive or negative, by the way, strengthens the memory's impact on your current perception and your actions. And this is where the problem is. Take, for instance, a diet attempt that ended up in a failure. You'll have experienced some disappointment, deception, or even more powerful, shame. And the issue is that your brain will use these memories to estimate your capabilities regarding similar future situations. So in this example, in your brain now, trying a diet equals remembering this one try when you failed, equals feeling shame and deception about it. And that just leaves your brain advising you against it because it wants to avoid repeating those negative feelings, of course. And because of that one time appeared this connection between the past experience and an emotional response that directs your current actions. So this ends up in a psychological perceived capability that is close to 0, meaning that you don't think you can do it because the last time that you've tried, you didn't succeed. And this effect is even more pronounced with individuals that have a low self-esteem, because even if they don't have any specific negative experience attached to the one that they're trying to repeat, they tend to view tasks as impossible and generalize the low perception of their abilities across the various areas of their lives. So if you want to resolve this, we need to shift from mind to body, from thinking to engaging, because you can change the thought pattern by physically engaging in the activity you doubt you can do. And this isn't some wild self-improvement advice, it's actually neuroscience. Each time that you do an action, you activate your neural pathway. Change the way you do the process, and the pathway will slowly have to adapt to the new condition. The most important thing to remember when you're facing these mental barriers is that there's actually nothing physical or absolute that's holding you back from activating. And even if you feel like you can possibly do it, chances are that you can do it. You're just using both hands and your legs. Surely stop here for a second and think about this. For example, let's say I believe I cannot paint, which is true, by the way. I don't. If I was to pick up a brush every day and just draw one line, taking about 2 minutes per day, something will start to shift. And at first it will be too tiny to notice, but by the end of the month, I might still doubt my ability to draw Picasso, but I can no longer say that I can't pick up a brush and draw a few lines. Do you see what's happening here? You can trick your brain into reshaping your perceived ability, even when very negative at the start. I didn't get rid of all of the negative perceived ability to this point, but through engaging, I've forced my brain to recognize my capability to pick up a brush and paint for a little. And the key here is that whatever the challenge you're facing, if you engage consistently regardless of the doubts. You will change and rewire the way you perceive your ability to do a thing. And if you make the action as simple, accessible, and frequent as possible, then it just becomes playing a game of just engaging or not. And that's your choice. I stole that idea from James Clear. So go read his book if you haven't yet. Over time, what we want to do is that we want the brain to start picking up on the fact that you can do it because you showed him dozens of times that you engage regardless self-doubts. And this will degrade the importance of the negative past experiences that you have stored in your memory and the generalized low self-esteem response that your brain triggers in order to prevent you from engaging. And for me, starting with the gym is the best way to help you rewire your brain because you can start simple. Gyms now are 24/7s for less than $20 per month. If you decide to engage, you don't need anyone or anything to get started really, except a clear roadmap and a structured workout routine. And if you want that, feel free to click the first link in the description down below. It's free. You'll thank me later. So the way people phrase this is very important. They usually say, I'm not motivated enough, or I don't have enough motivation. And the devil's in the details. How motivation is perceived matters a lot. Many see it as a resource that sustains action, and it's really not. Motivation is only the initial spark, the beginning of a behavior, not the reason why it lasts. Think of yourself like a car engine, okay? Bear with me for a minute, you're gonna understand this. To start the car, you turn the keys, creating a spark that ignites the engine. However, the engine, it runs on gasoline and not unlimited little tiny sparks. That's the first thing. People think that motivation is what will get them through the whole workout, for example, or the hardest part, but it's not. Again, motivation is only useful for the very start. For example, motivation might get you to pick your gym bag and step out of the door, but it won't carry you much further on its own. The second thing is that your motivation has to come from somewhere. It needs a source, and that's very important. Because if this source is weak, then you're like a car with a dead battery inside. You're unable to start. That's what people are feeling when they say they're not motivated enough, or they don't have motivation and they end up procrastinating. This is the reason why. But to understand this, we need to talk about the different types of motivation that there are. And you may have heard about extrinsic motivation versus intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is when the source of the motivation comes from the outside. It's your environment, not your own battery. And when the spark is triggered by money, status, or reward, that's a problem because it's out of your control and you can't use it if it's not here. On the other hand, intrinsic motivation comes from within. It's the drive that you can feel inside when you engage in meaningful activities, the drive to act for personal fulfillment. This is way more powerful because it means that you can possibly ignite the engine whenever needed, independent of external factors. The solution here, first, is that it's crucial to understand that motivation has its limits. It is just the initial push, nothing more. Don't worry though, because you have another built-in system, reliable source of energy called discipline. Discipline is the gasoline that keeps you going far and steady without the need for constant replenishment. Remind yourself that discipline, not fleeting motivation, is the key. This mindset shift prevents you from relying too heavily on motivation, giving up because of the lack of it. Initially, it might be tempting to lean on extrinsic motivation because it seems easier, it's more accessible. For example, it would be rewarding yourself with another Netflix episode whenever you do go to the gym. And if that sounds cool, it's not sustainable. Instead, you can tap into intrinsic motivation. And trust me, everyone's capable of doing so. You just have to introspect, search for it, and just be willing to discover what's hidden behind it. Discovering your big why is about understanding the deep personal reasons that are driving your desire for change. This internal source of motivation, it provides much stronger and enduring actions toward your goals. And if you do your homeworks and you truly ask yourself the question about the reason why you need to change, then you'll slowly start to be able to see the true reason why you want to go to the gym or you want to start a diet. And for me personally, it was about control. I needed something that made me feel like I was able to have a clear impact over my life. And what will be more appropriate than purposefully deciding to destroy your body with reps and weights in order to grow muscles? You just tell me. This is the last mental obstacle, and it's about confidence. Now, the first thing is that everyone that has ever started anything was bad at it when they first started. Anything that's new for you will be a challenge. And there's just no way around that, because whatever you want to do, start going to the gym, diet, swimming, or even learn how to paint, you will have to begin without any prior significant experiences or knowledge about this thing. Memory and mind wise, there's no frame of reference that you can use for what you're about to undertake, leaving you just feeling unsure and overwhelmed about the way to proceed. And in the case of the gym, it's more than just starting something by yourself. It's also because you're in a social environment. In addition to being new, you add up the potential fear of judgment, putting another layer of pressure on top of it. And I know that for a fact because I've experienced it myself. Because it was a struggle in itself to show up in crowded places for me at first, let alone lifting weights in the face of bulky strangers. But believe it or not, the gym is the best cure for the lack of confidence and social struggles. But we'll get back to that in a second. First, let me ask you this question. Why should you expect to feel confident when you're just beginning? How could you be? Has confidence just come from self-assurance of your own abilities to do something? You cannot possibly be confident when starting, and it should never be the goal. The best solution for that is to reframe it. Tell yourself that your first day, you'll learn the most. By the second day, you will probably feel 1% less embarrassed and 1% more confident. And before you know it, you'll be 3 months in and you'll be way acquainted to the environment, the gym, the routine, the people, feeling more competent, therefore more confident. This is why it's so important to have a proper structure when you're just starting. Again, first link in the description, not bothering you anymore. A helpful thought I would remind myself when feeling very insecure was this: I cannot possibly unlearn something. I like, there's no negative learning. Like, if I just show up and I just do the thing and try my very best, there's no way that I'll learn how to do it at some point, like how to properly do it. When you're past your first month, usually, trust me, everything gets far more easier. The second thing is that, and that's true especially for anxious people, no one really cares about you or what you're doing. People want to look at interesting things, and when you're starting, you're not very interesting. People are too focused in their own workouts. Most of them are just likely to have noise canceling headphones blasting hardstyle like I do now. Don't think that you're the center of attention. Don't overthink this. Don't think that people are watching you 24/7, because it's not the case. And the worst thing that could happen is that they see you doing some shit and you just remind them of themselves when they were just starting. And because that's how I feel when I see beginners. I feel compassion and empathy, and I want to encourage them. That's true as long as you're not trying to fabric or counterfeit confidence, because you have every right to start as long as you're being respectful and polite. More than that, you can ask for help. Older members will gladly help you out whenever you're a beginner, because if it doesn't sound like this at first, you'll see that there's a real atmosphere of mutual aid in the gym that's present. You just have to look for it and be willing to open up yourself a little bit. Last thing about this, confidence comes from stacking up positive experiences over and over again. Your brain having a reference point for your actions, guiding you towards precision and efficacy. Initially, feeling confident is unrealistic because you haven't yet built up those reference points. You have nothing when you're first starting. Instead of trying to find confidence, embrace the learning process and the time that it takes. Acknowledge that every time that you go to the gym, you're becoming more skilled 1% at a time. Because after years in the gym, I still encounter moments of uncertainty. For example, when I'm meeting new people or trying new exercises. And I just keep reminding myself that it's natural and it should be that way because it's part of their learning process. And with time, confidence will naturally follow if you do the right thing. So the most important thing to take away from this is that if you encounter one of those barriers, and you will if you're starting, trust me, you just keep going. You just keep engaging, keep doing the thing, be consistent. That's the most important thing by far. Discipline is the most crucial skill to build if you want to lose the fat, build the muscles, have the dream physique. Anything that you want to do is achievable. Remember that these obstacles, these barriers, they aren't physical problems restricting you from acting. This is just your brain trying to pull you back to the comfort zone because you're putting a new stress on it. So I truly hope this helps. In the meantime, you just trust the process.